There's a part of you you've been taught to hide, a part you try to deny, repress, or bury under politeness, positivity, and performance. It's the part of you that wants to say no when everyone expects yes. It's the part that feels rage, envy, desire. We call this the dark side, and for centuries we've been told it's bad, dangerous, even evil. But what if that's the biggest lie you've ever believed? What if your dark side isn't your enemy but your untapped power? What if everything you've labeled as bad inside you is actually the beginning of your potential? In this video, we're going to go deep into the shadows of the human psyche, into ancient philosophy, modern psychology, and raw personal truth to uncover a reality most people are too afraid to face. Your dark side isn't a flaw. It's fuel. And if you don't learn to integrate it, it will control you from the shadows. Let's start with the basics. Why are we so terrified of our darker impulses? Because they threaten the image we've built. Society rewards the mask being agreeable, being nice, being safe. But what it punishes is honesty. The moment you express anger, boundaries, ambition, or even sadness in its raw form, people flinch. So we learn to hide, we suppress. But here's the paradox: what you suppress owns you. Think of it like a volcano. You can't pretend the lava isn't there. You can only choose whether to channel it or let it erupt. Carl Jung called this the shadow. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That one quote should stop you cold. Because what you ignore in yourself doesn't disappear, it just operates in silence, shaping your actions, sabotaging your relationships, limiting your growth.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
We've all felt it. That moment when you explode at someone over something small. Or when you shrink back and self-sabotage even though you want more. Or when you envy someone and then guilt yourself for feeling it. These aren't random. These are signs that your shadow is acting without your permission. And the truth is, your shadow isn't evil. It's unintegrated. It's you misunderstood. That's why the most dangerous people aren't the ones who express darkness. It's the ones who deny it. Think about it. Most atrocities in history weren't committed by people who saw themselves as villains. They saw themselves as righteous, as good. They had no idea what was lurking in their own psyche. That's what happens when we try to kill the shadow. It doesn't die. It hides. And then it acts without conscious awareness. So the first step to reclaiming your power isn't to suppress your darkness, it's to face it. But this isn't about indulging your worst instincts. This isn't give in to rage or act on every impulse. That's just chaos. What we're talking about is integration. Think of your dark side as raw energy. Like electricity, it can destroy or illuminate depending on how it's used. Your anger, for example, isn't the problem. It's what you do with it. Anger can lead to violence, or it can lead to boundaries, strength, and justice. Envy can rot you from the inside, or it can reveal exactly what you desire most and show you where to aim your focus. Even fear, when faced directly, becomes courage. So the question is not how do I get rid of my shadow? The question is, how do I learn to work with it? Can you sit with your anger without exploding? Can you admit your jealousy without shame? Can you hear the voice inside you that wants more and choose to honor it with discipline, not denial? Now here's where it gets really deep. Your shadow is also the birthplace of your creativity. Every artist, every rebel, every great thinker had to face the part of themselves that didn't conform, that didn't fit in, that asked ugly questions, that wanted to break rules. That's the shadow speaking. It's the part of you that refuses to settle for the ordinary, that challenges the system, that says, there's more in me. I won't be tamed. And if you try to silence that voice, you kill your gift. You become another copy of what society wants. But if you listen, if you channel it through art, through movement, through building, through truth, you become dangerous in the best way. You become someone who can't be controlled by shame or fear. Someone who sees clearly, acts decisively, and refuses to betray their own soul. So let me ask you something most people never dare consider. What part of yourself have you been taught to hate? And what if that's the key to your freedom? What if your sensitivity is not weakness, but a superpower when refined? What if your rage is not a failure, but a compass pointing to injustice? What if your desire isn't dirty, but divine, just waiting for the right direction? These questions aren't just theoretical. They're the doorway to your transformation. Because once you stop rejecting yourself, something miraculous happens. You begin to evolve. Not by adding something new, but by integrating what you've always had. That's real power. Not the kind that needs to dominate others, but the kind that can't be dominated because it's whole. If we look back through the history of wisdom traditions, Stoicism, Zen, Taoism, even the warrior codes of the samurai, we don't find people trying to be endlessly positive or good in the modern, sanitized sense. What we find are people who understood that the goal of life isn't to erase the dark, it's to balance it, to transmute it, to walk with it, neither indulging it nor denying it, but using it like a blade, sharp, precise, and under control. Take Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful emperors in Roman history. His Stoic journal, Meditations, wasn't a celebration of virtue alone. It was a constant reminder to himself to watch his impulses, to discipline his mind, to check his ego. Why? Because he knew the darker parts of his nature, pride, anger, lust, ambition, were always present. But instead of pretending they weren't there, he met them head-on, every single day. And what about the samurai? These were men trained from childhood to kill. But their training wasn't just physical, it was deeply philosophical. They studied Zen. They meditated with death. They understood that a sword without inner clarity was a disaster waiting to happen. That's why Musashi, whom we just explored in the previous script, could write the Book of 5 Rings after a lifetime of duels. He wasn't just teaching how to win fights, he was teaching how to master the self. The samurai didn't see their dark side as a curse. They saw it as part of the path. Their rage, their fear, their attachment to life itself were all things to be studied, not erased. Because once you see your darkness clearly, it no longer controls you. You step into a kind of internal freedom that can't be taken away because it's rooted in self-knowledge. Now compare that to modern life. We're encouraged to either suppress our darkness or act it out recklessly. We're told to be nice, to avoid conflict, to smile through the pain. And then we wonder why we feel hollow, resentful, or lost. Why we blow up in traffic, ghost people, or numb out with screens and substances. It's because we've lost the art of integration. We've forgotten that the strongest people aren't those who pretend to be pure, they're the ones who faced their inner chaos and forged it into strength. Taoism offers a beautiful image for this, the yin and yang, light and dark swirling together in balance. Neither side can exist without the other, and each contains a seed of its opposite. That's not just cosmic poetry. That's psychological truth. You are not good or bad. You are whole. And the sooner you stop fighting your complexity, the sooner you become real. Modern psychology is finally catching up to what these ancient systems knew all along. Carl Jung, as we mentioned, introduced the idea of the shadow, and he wasn't alone. Gestalt therapy, internal family systems, and even cognitive behavioral models all show us that the parts of ourselves we repress don't vanish. They just get louder, more twisted, and more destructive. Until we listen, until we bring them into awareness. And that's the key, awareness. Not judgment, not control. First, see the part of you that wants to dominate, manipulate, hide, or lash out. Then ask, what is this part protecting? What does it fear? What does it need to say that I've never allowed it to say? Often you'll find that your dark side is just a younger version of you, wounded, scared, and trying to keep you safe in the only way it knows how. So how do we practice this in daily life? You start by building a relationship with your shadow. You give it a name. You talk to it. You write to it. You ask it questions. You stop treating it like a monster and start treating it like a teacher. When you feel triggered, instead of reacting or repressing, pause. Ask, what is this really about? What am I afraid of losing? What truth am I avoiding? This is how you train like a warrior of the mind. You make space for the discomfort. You breathe into it. You don't run. And over time, the reactions slow down. The shame begins to dissolve. And in its place, you find power. Not the power to dominate others, but the power to choose your response, to act from clarity, to live from depth. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you're in a situation where someone disrespects you. Your shadow flares up. You feel rage. The old version of you might explode or shut down. But the integrated version of you feels the fire and stays present. You use the anger as information. I'm not okay with this. Then you channel it into action, a clear boundary, a direct statement, a decision to walk away. No guilt, no shame, just strength. That's the power of integration. You're not being controlled by your darkness, you're leading it. And that's what makes you dangerous in the best way possible. In the final part, we're going to bring all of this together into a philosophy of action. We'll explore how to live a life where your dark side becomes your ally, not through suppression and not through indulgence, but through conscious direction. We'll look at how love, leadership, creativity, and even spirituality transform when you stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as whole. This is where philosophy meets power. When you finally stop running from your shadow, something astonishing happens. You begin to create. Not just art or ideas, but a life that reflects your deepest truth. Your darkness, once feared, becomes your source of originality, passion, and resilience. This is what most people miss. The shadow isn't just about healing, it's about becoming, but becoming someone who can hold contradiction, walk through fire without burning others, and speak truth even when it shakes the room. You become magnetic not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Think about it. How different would your relationships be if you stopped hiding? How would your work evolve if you let your ambition speak? How much peace would you feel if you no longer judged the parts of you that hurt, burn, or hunger? This isn't about letting the shadow lead. It's about leading it, holding your sword with grace, creating from chaos, loving without losing yourself. That's the path of integration, and it's the path to power. So I'll ask you one final question. What happens when the part of you feared the most becomes the part you trust the most? That's not darkness, that's aliveness. And it's been waiting for you all along.